My name is Suit and Tie Guy, and I build synthesizers under the name STG Sound Labs in Chillicothe, Illinois, USA. I design instruments and figure out how to sell them and how to build them. My first job was writing music for a Macintosh video game called Oids, and I got the job over the internet in 1994, and then I worked for an ad agency called Multi-Ad Services, and then I worked for an advertising specialties company doing layout, and then I worked for a newspaper and then a TV station and then a newspaper again, and then I jockeyed coffee for my mother. The whole time I was doing this, I was also trying to play music, get people to hear it, do whatever I could. And I decided that I wanted a modular synthesizer. I mean, I'd wanted one like before then. And then after I saw what Roger Eric was doing with Synthesizers.com, I knew what I had to do, but I didn't have the money for it. So I produced a rap album for some guys in Peoria who thought they were from the Dirty South, and then used the money to try to buy my first synthesizer, and I just wound up dumping money into a DIY project that went on, and eventually I got to the point where I realized that I had to actually sell something. And now I also have a product line across two formats, Moog format and Eurorack. There's some people that have helped me out on this journey. The first guy that I was working with, his name was Paul Brooks, and he lives in St. Louis, and he's not an engineer, but he's one of those people that can explain to you how electrons flow through a circuit. And I learned a lot working from him, but we didn't actually get anywhere. And then I started working with this guy that I met on the Harmony Central forums named Joe Grisso. He worked at Digitech and Emu Systems, and then he was working for the company that did like FireWire interfaces for Mackie and stuff, and now he works for Personas, and we've been working together since 2006 or 2005. And I got friends around here that have also helped me quite a bit too. So it's not a one-man shop, but it is. I'm the one that has to ship the boxes. Sometimes there's something that I want to do. Sometimes someone has requested something, and I thought it was a good idea, so I decided to go with it. And we work on. Joe and I talk about it, and sometimes, sometimes we have a circuit and then I do a front panel, and sometimes we have a front panel and then we do a circuit, and sometimes we do a circuit and then a front panel or whatever, and we get all that stuff done, and then there's still software to do. Like in the case of the envelope generator, that people are asking me why it isn't out yet, and the reason is because the software is not done yet. But that's what happens when you do digital stuff. But it's going to be real cool when it's done. I find the pseudo-Hegelian dialectic of the East Coast versus West Coast synthesizer to be it's an insult to electronic music, and it's an insult to my geography. I am in the middle of America, and I just want to make music. I've got nice things to say about them all. I think, obviously, like Roger Eric over at Synthesizers.com is probably the most important to me, because he brought Moog format back from the dead. And, I'm real impressed with the way, Harvest Man and WMD do stuff that's just completely weird, and I don't understand it. And I know that it's interesting stuff. I think it's neat that it's just crazy enough that I don't even understand how it works. Sometimes I see how things are supposed to work in the larger framework of things, and sometimes I just have like an idea that I want to see happen, and I'm prepared to revisit all these ideas as long as it's as we can. Like, I'm building towards instruments and systems, and when that happens, if something doesn't work right in the context of the whole, then I'd like to revisit it. But you know, I can't foresee everything. I'm not sure if I have any engineering heroes, but I'd say that like obviously like Bob Moog was incredibly important. The idea of 1 volt per octave control and the transistor ladder filter are completely genius. These are not engineering ideas. These are circuit theory. This is physics, okay? Electronic physics. And but as far as like engineering goes, there's a guy, I'd say he's like the most important engineer in the history of electronic music, and that's David Cockerell, who worked for EMS in the late 60s, and then he worked for Electro Harmonics in the 70s, and then Akai in the 80s. So this guy had his hands in British synthesizers and then American effects and Japanese samplers. He crossed, you know, like his work crossed all production boundaries, all genres. There's probably not, it would probably be hard to find music being made today that didn't somehow have some element of this man's footprint on it. Modular synthesizers are like Lego blocks for electronic sound. I'm fascinated with the concept of analog signal paths and digital control. It's an underexplored aspect. Digital control gives you predictable results, and it can give you like a set of boundaries. Analog stuff sounds great, but like analog control systems are complicated, and it's very difficult to like come up with a theoretical like control network and then construct it using analog means. It's actually, it runs from being difficult to impossible, and the whole gamut is pointless because we can just program a computer to do that. So why make an analog envelope generator? I'm not interested. I liked synthesizers when I always thought synthesizers sounded cool when I was a kid. Seeing like, you know, like my favorite show when my age was like single digits was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and there was a lot of Moog or ARP on that, you know, and Rhodes piano, that kind of stuff. So those sound like, and cartoons. I really liked Inspector Gadget. That had a really good electronic score. And a lot of the TV shows that I watched, you know, like I watched a lot of TV when I was a kid, and the sounds really influenced me. And then when you know, like in junior high, I got into like Baroque music and that sort of thing, and then I hit like Wendy Carlos and Isao Tomita. And then in high school, I found a copy of Pictures at an Exhibition, the Emerson, Lake and Palmer album, in my mom's record collection, and it changed my life. Hearing what Keith Emerson did with the, you know, like I'd heard a Moog modular synthesizer, and I'd heard a Hammond organ before, but this grabbed me in a way that I immediately just fell in love with it in a way that it didn't captivate me. I had an interest before. I liked it before, but Emerson, Lake and Palmer just really, it grabbed me, made me want to play this stuff. And then I'd say like Tangerine Dream is what made me want to like own and like modify, like own and build modular synthesizers. I would say like another engineering hero of mine is actually would be the engineers of Project Electronic Berlin, who, when this band that had a whole bunch of money called them up, named Tangerine Dream, and said, "We would like you to build some synthesizers for us," they said, "Sure, no problem. What's a synthesizer?" And then made some of the most interesting modular synthesizers of the 70s. Totally mystifying shit.
And people still don't even know.
And we don't even know how they work. Hoping to fix that someday. Raymond Scott he designed all of his own stuff, and we still don't know how Raymond Scott stuff worked. There's some ideas, but I know that there's some people trying to restore the electronium, but he kept on cannibalizing his older instruments to make his newer instruments. So basically, by the time he died, absolutely nothing that he had built still worked. Another interesting synthesizer I'd like to know how it works is this thing that was built for one of the brothers that owned Lamborghini in the late 70s and early 80s, named Patrick Mimran. And he had this synthesizer built for him that had this crazy, like, push-button sequencer interface. It had a physical piano roll sequencer on it in buttons. It was crazy. My musical influences. I'll throw some names out. L.T.J. Bookham, Groove Holmes, Jimmy McGriff, Booker T. Jones, Isaac Hayes, Barry White, Keith Emerson, Robert Fripp, King Crimson, Wendy Carlos, Weird Al Yankovic, Huey Lewis and the News, Klaus Schulze, Pete Namlook, Larry Hurd, Marshall Jefferson, Hard Floor, Prototype 909, Michael Brook, David Torn. Those are some names. Those are some influences. If you wanted to, if you were to peer into the things that I listen to, it would everything kind of fits together, but it's a lot of stuff that you don't. I really don't. I can't imagine my record collection being owned by somebody else, but I think that it all fits together and makes. Oh, David Sylvian, gigantic. David Sylvian, Lorena McKennitt, Anya. Actually, I forgot to mention Anya. I think that Anya is the reason I like the Juno 6 so much. Did you know that Anya's favorite keyboard's a Juno 6? Okay, so I own the first analog synthesizer that I bought was a Juno 6 that I bought from a man named David Bremenkamp for $150 in 1995, and it has a Boss sticker on it. Okay, and another influence of mine, Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. Went to go see him at a show, and everyone else brought. I've been going to see Bela Fleck for a while, and yeah, I know, suit and tie guy likes Bela Fleck. That makes a lot of sense, right? So these guys, all these Bela Fleck fans that bring their banjos and their bass guitars for Bela and Wooten to sign or whatever. No wonder I never saw anyone bring a Synth-X for Future Man to sign, but I would have liked to have seen that. But I brought my Juno 6, and I was like, hey guys, would you bless my Juno 6? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so my Juno 6 is signed by Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. And I love the thing. I got a Juno 6, I've got a Juno 6, and I got a Juno 60. And I can't imagine living life without a Juno 6. It's my favorite keyboard. And I think that This didn't occur to me until a couple days ago when I was like, you know, I was hanging out with my friend Ryan Sullivan, and like I had forgotten that I used to listen to Anya. I like the Celts and Shepherd Moons and Watercolor. Those 3 albums got heavy airplay in my brain from the age of like 7th grade to like, I don't know, the end of high school or whatever. And they're drenched in Juno. I mean, like Anya's favorite keyboard is the Juno. Like her albums are all like Juno and Anya vocal overdubs and stuff like that. And yeah, and I think that was probably the gigantic influence on me. You know, Anya. Anya, Lorena McKenna, these like, you know, Celtic chick fusion vocalists. Love it. Fucking love it. Oh, God. I really like getting stuff in front of people who have never played this shit and seeing how they like it. So ever since I had like a system that was like functional, I've been going to things wherever I can. Like I've done Moogfest twice, 2011 and 2014, and the electro-music.com festival in 2008. And you know, I go to as many synth meets as I can, and 2012 gave us KnobCon. 2013 gave us KnobCon the 13th, Part 2, the final Friday. And this year is KnobCon Episode 3, Revenge of the Synth. Not enough women. I'd like to see more women playing this stuff. So the interviewers just asked me like, how important is accuracy? And all I can really say is I make sure the holes are in the right place. I like to make sure that the order gets to the right person. So like that's what's most changed, I'd say, is that like synthesizers were not really cool, and I've watched them get cool again. And I'm happy about that. And they're not going to go away because, you know, those power structures that were able to tell people what was going to be popular, you know, because it was handed down from above, you know, like well, new wave's popular now, or like hair metal's popular now, or like synth pop's big now, and then we're like, now grunge is big now. Like none of that shit matters anymore. People have to make up their own minds. And people like synthesizers. They like bleeps and bloops. They also like guitars. None of this shit is going to go away. So I'd say that like the biggest thing to happen is that electronic music has reasserted itself as in a cultural position, its rightful cultural position of having a place at the table. And you're not going to be able to kick them out the door.
Yo, plug Frown Tones. You can get them on Twitter. You can get them live on Facebook. Download the...
I'm sorry, what am I supposed to plug in Frowntown? This is DJ Frowntown?
You said I could plug Frown Tones.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm plugging Frowntown.
Right, yeah. This is DJ Frowntown. Check out his YouTube channel, djfrowntown.com, and his t-shirts at frownway.biz.